Oh yeah, guess who's back? Back again. Cody and Tara are back. Tell a friend.
The
This is
dynamic
probably
duo.
the dynamic duo. Oh yes, we are back for another Saturday afternoon. And welcome, Tara. Welcome. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. The weather is horrific. The sky is literally black outside right now. So summer is here. The Irish summer has arrived.
Wow, that's crazy to think about because it is like it's scorching here and just gorgeous outside. Like I don't even know
Lovely.
if there's a cloud in the sky out here today. But I wouldn't know because I'm in here. So hey,
Yeah.
I don't like the windows in here just show like the side of the pool deck,
Mm.
so I can't see nothing because we're in a basement, man. But today we are talking about our top 10 favorite concept albums. Doesn't have to be just prog, most of them are. But there's just some classic rock, pop, maybe some metal, some prog metal, it's all here. So
Yeah.
we're gonna let the lady go first. Because she's
Um. Okay. I don't know if I've 10 or if I've more. I'm not sure.
I'll just go for it. We got
Can't
time.
remember.
Time is
I
on our side.
choose Nude by Camel because I thought I'd go for like a list that would be a bit odd, that you wouldn't kind of immediately think of, because I know people would be going like The Wall or like Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater and that. So,
Oh, don't be calling me out like that.
well, look, it's just one that comes into your head straight away. Like, so I said, look, I'm going to kind of move away from those and I'm going to go for some odd ones. And
All right.
when I was thinking of Camel, I was thinking of the Snow Goose. But then I said, no, I'm going to pick Nude. Nude is a fantastic album. It's a bit overlooked. It's a beautiful story. It has me in tears when I listen to it about this guy going off to war. And I think it's a fantastic album. So that is my first pick.
I know another album about a guy gone off to war.
Yeah, I'm sure, because there's fucking loads of them.
Oh.
Sorry, just saying it as it is.
Oh, go for it. I'm cool with it. That's fine. What do you got next, cutie? I mean, Irish friend of mine.
It's your turn.
I was gonna let you go all the way through, but okay,
Oh,
all right,
really?
all right.
No, take turns.
We'll go shot for shot. That's okay. I'm gonna go Steve Hackett, Voyage of the Acolyte. Most people probably wouldn't have expected this, but it is indeed a concept album. It's about tarot card readings and all that fancy stuff. Hands of the Priestess, the Hermit, Star of Sirius, all that. Phil Collins, drum galore on this. Obviously, I'm a pretty large Phil Collins fan and a pretty large Steve Hackett fan. I've seen this guy 7 times. Um, I just I just love him. And
Stalker.
Stalker, yeah, I know. I'm like, when is he coming back to Ontario? Like, honestly, yeah, like,
Steve,
yeah.
I miss you. Come back to Canada.
um, yeah. So, Voyage of the Acolyte, because the whole album has this flow, and the way that certain tracks are interconnected is really nice. Obviously, you have Hands of the Priestess Part 1 going into A Tower Struck Down, into Hands of the Priestess Part 2. A lot of this is actually instrumental.
Yeah.
And so the pieces and themes of the music just flow together really nicely and ends in an ultimate climax with the Shadow of the Hierophant. And
Oh,
I've seen him play that live tons of
yeah.
times.
Yeah.
When you saw Steve, did you see him play the entire bit with Amanda Lehman?
Yeah.
Oh, so he
Um,
never brings her over here. So they just do the last block of that song. That
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You are a lucky duck. So yeah, that's my first pick here. Steve Hackett, Voyage of the Acolyte. It's an incredible album.
Nice.
Great musicianship. And Mike Rutherford.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really good pick there. Fair play.
Thank
Um,
you.
right, I'm going into Quadrophenia by The Who. I was very torn because I love Tommy so much, but I grew up with the film, and I tend to listen to the film soundtrack more than the album. I don't know why. It's probably a nostalgia thing, whatever. But Quadrophenia, because it's so rocking and kind of like heavy, I really, really like it. And I think, you know, I know they did the film along with it, but if you hadn't seen the film and you only heard the album, you'd be able to follow the story fine. Like, and it's great because you can see it in this day and age. People feel the need to identify themselves with labels. And that was the way it was back then. And people would identify themselves by what music they listened to. You had the new waves, the punks, the rockers, the mods. And this is about the war between the mods and the rockers. And it's just fantastic. I think it's one of their best albums that they ever did. Absolutely fantastic. Like, I just, oh my God, what an album. And the film is fantastic as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, you get a young Sting in the film too, right?
You do, yeah. Sting the Bellboy.
I've only seen that movie once, and it was a long time ago, but I love the record. I love one of the things about that record for me is John Entwistle's bass playing on tracks like The Real Me and such, and it ends with Love Reign Over Me. Roger Daltrey just giving her.
Yeah.
I don't have any Who in my list, although I could have probably picked something like Tommy or that one because they're both great. Yeah. Next up for me is Elton John's Tumbleweed Connection. Now you might look at this on the surface and say that's not a concept album. Well, actually it is. All the songs tie into a sort of Midwest Americana type feel. You know, the country sort of side of things like Country Comfort. The almost sort of ragtime feel. I mean, it's not fast like ragtime, but like Son of Your Father, that sort of Americana, you know, Midwest honky tonk sort of approach, even though this is definitely a rock album for sure.
Yeah.
Amarina, I mean, come on, who else was named Amarina outside of the Midwest, right? And those guys were obsessed with that type of music at the time, and so this was a natural album for them to make, and it is such a brilliant record. I think this album is literally 10 out of 10. It is
fantastic. Yeah, it's very, all that era of Elton John, the early era is so overlooked. I think people have no idea. Like I mean, it took a long time for me to even realize that some of his earlier stuff was really proggy. Like,
oh, okay. So you're not counting like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road as part of the early phase of.
I do actually, yeah, I do, because it's that again. That's very proggy. I mean, Love Lies Bleeding, Funeral for a Friend is a total prog epic. Like, you know.
I agree with you. Actually, I agree with you on all fronts there. Actually. But yeah, this album, Ballad of a Well-Known Gun, I mean, this is the album that got props from Bob Dylan when they were backstage at one of those gigs that they were doing, and Bob Dylan came up and said, "Man, I love your lyrics, man. Want to buy some Mandy's, Bob?" Talking Old Soldiers, obviously about people who had been, you know, sort of killed in the war, and then their friends who were left behind and just kind of have PTSD and, you know, just, you know, in a bar talking about it to strangers and things like that. Burn Down the Mission, brilliant. Brilliant. Come Down in Time is one of my favorite ones. It's, you know, just a great record. My Father's Gun. Yeah, so the storytelling throughout this whole thing, it really takes you back to a specific time, and a time that these guys weren't actually even a part of, but they nailed the feel of it so well. And that is the sign of a good songwriter.
Yeah.
Elton John, Tumbleweed Connection.
Yeah. Like, they would have grown up with stuff about all that era on the radio and everything. So they really pulled all that into it so well in that album. Brilliant.
Agree.
Right.
Okay. What do you got?
Into a modern kind of one. I'm picking out Deloused in the Comatorium by the Mars Volta.
All right.
It's a concept album about a guy that accidentally drinks a cocktail of like rat poison and stuff, and he goes into a coma, and the album is about like all the stuff that his brain is doing, like it's bringing him off into this kind of escapism world, and it's nuts. Like, their music is crazy, but it's fantastic. And I first heard Roulette Dares off this, and I was just hooked because it's so banging. Like, I actually kind of put them on that threshold between prog rock and prog metal. Like, their stuff is heavy. There's jazz fusion in there. There's all sorts in there. It's just fantastic. Such a good album. Highly recommend to anyone that hasn't heard it.
Okay, I haven't heard that.
You would love it.
Right on, right on. I bet I would. All right, what do we got? What do we got up next? Yeah, you typically recommend things that I like a lot, and so that's cool. Next up is an album that is kind of like going to the circus when you listen to it, because this album is very influenced by Abbey Road and the way the songs sort of flow in and out of each other,
Mm.
and they take you through different moods and stuff. And this album is almost like spending a night at the opera.
Mm.
It's Queen, A Night at the Opera. How about that?
Who
This
would
is
have known?
this is a perfect album. Just hands down. This is just a brilliant record. And Brian May said himself that they were super inspired by the Beatles and what they did on side 2 of Abbey Road, that they would try to make their own album in a similar vein. And they did
Mm.
2 albums that way. I'm just mentioning this one. But A Day at the Races is also done in a similar fashion, with the same sort of style cover,
Yeah, yeah.
except for that one's black and it's got that one's black. Yeah, this album is just amazing. And if you don't think Queen are prog, listen to the Prophet song.
What's
That's
the concept behind that?
So the concept is it's just like going to like a fair. It's just like going to an opera, right? So a
Mm.
lot of the songs are interconnected, like the way they sort of flow into each other, like the Prophet song goes into Love of My Life. It's not tied together by like a lyric standpoint, but just as it's one of those where you sit down and you listen to the album as a whole, and it takes you on an adventure like you would actually be going to some sort of circus or a night at the opera.
Cool.
Like you got, it opens up with Death on Two Legs. This is considered a concept album, even though there's no lyrical connections between most of the songs. Death on Two Legs, which is dedicated to their old manager at the time. And then that goes into Lazy on a Sunday Afternoon, which goes into I'm in Love with My Car. And you have a big hit single with You're My Best Friend. So maybe it's not like a full-on concept album, but it definitely has the criteria to sort of like it was designed as, okay, you can listen to specific tracks of this, but it's best to listen to this as a whole because we're going to take you on a journey.
Nice.
Queen, A Night at the Opera.
I love a big experience like that. Like the way they artistically intended to be listened to as this big, massive experience for you to sit down and embrace. Like, wish people would keep doing that.
And you haven't heard this one, right?
No.
But I mean, aside from Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, obviously.
Everybody.
I've heard songs off of it, like I'm in love with my car and all that. I've been pulled off it, like, you know.
But you've never heard the Prophet song.
I have, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Right, I'm gonna pull out some jazz because this is just a huge concept album, and I think the story behind it is brilliant. So the Epic by Kamasi Washington, the weight of it, Jesus Christ, it's a big triple album.
Yeah, he's good.
He's incredible, and it's about a dream he had where there was an old man at the bottom of a mountain guarding like a city, and he kind of interpreted it himself and like wrote about the changing of the old guard and everything as jazz being taken off at the shelf and being brought back to like popularity. And I've no problem saying this. This guy is the greatest living jazz musician that's out there right now. He is incredibly talented. His songs are just mind-blowing. His playing is incredible. He has a massive band behind him, and he just goes above and beyond with the music, which is such a breath of fresh air these days. And oh my God, it's just such an experience to listen to. And the music is just so good. Like you can tell he's greatly influenced by Miles Davis because he makes sure that every musician is on the ball. Like,
oh gosh, absolutely.
So yeah, The Epic by Kamasi Washington.
Oh, I would reckon that every jazz musician post 1970 is probably influenced by Miles Davis, because that
Oh,
dude,
everyone, and not even jazz musicians, musicians in general.
absolutely.
He set the bar so high, like, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not like a diehard, but I got a few of his albums, like Live Evil, Bitches Brew, In a Silent Way,
Mhm.
um, basically the John McLaughlin stuff.
Yeah.
Nefertiti, Next up, this is a band. I think you might know this band, Tara. The singer was obsessed with the adventures of a yogi. And so they had just brought in their new drummer, Alan White, who made this amazing thing, the
Yes.
Sol Dupe Elias. Yes, his Tales from Topographic Oceans. The whole concept of this album came from Steve Howe and John Anderson reading that yogi book that they were into at the time. I got to say, a lot of the lyrics don't particularly make a whole lot of sense to me, but that's okay, because I love the music on this record so much. And this is remixed by Steven Wilson with the surround sound mix in this. Obviously, it's 4 20-minute songs. But even though I say that about the lyrics, but it actually has some of the most beautiful lyrics on it, like Nous sommes du soleil, open doors, we find our way, we look, we see, we smile. It doesn't
Yeah.
even have to mean
Well, it's
anything.
it's a meditation, like, it's a complete meditation to the sun, like, because John Anderson worships the sun.
Absolutely.
You can
Absolutely.
see that, and Jamie Moore actually told him that he should go out and make that album. So that's definitely another reason why it's so crazy.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so like even though not knowing that, you might listen to the lyrics and go, what's going on here? The lyrics still, even if you're unsure about them, it is still beautiful to listen to some of the stuff that he's saying on this album. It's just great. Obviously, I love Chris Squire chunking away, the sound of Alan White's drums throughout this whole thing. But yeah, this is a concept about the adventures of a yogi. So yeah, yes, this Tales from Topographic Oceans. I love it. It's one of those love it or hate it records. I'm in the love it camp, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a long record too, at only 4 songs, but
It's so off the wall. That was like the most prog thing anyone could have ever done was that album. That
definitely.
hits every single point in prog music.
Yeah. Honestly, this is like, oh, you
Brilliant.
want to progress? We're going to progress so much out of this world that you guys aren't even going to know what to do, and they did, and then punk happened. This album was the first rock album to go gold off of pre-sales alone.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, what an album.
I know.
Anyway, I am taking us back to Mr. Elton John. And I've pulled out Captain Fantastic and Brown Dirt Cowboy because I absolutely adore this album. So it's like an autobiographical story about him and Bernie Taupin's journey in the music industry. So he's Captain Fantastic, Bernie's the Brown Dirt Cowboy. They were the nicknames they had for each other. And it's just such a journey of an album. And this is another one, I'm always in tears at the end of it. Oh my God. That we all fall in love sometimes at the end. Oh my God.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
Absolutely
with those
brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. So good. Even the artwork on the album and everything is just incredible. They really did a great job with this, and I wish it was more known again because it's such a high point in his career, I think. Absolutely fantastic thing to produce.
That album, Someone Saved My Life Tonight, is one of the greatest songs ever written. And that was a big hit, at least in North America. Like that was, and the record company said, "Do you mind shortening this down for single edit?" And he said, "No, I don't want to do that. We're not doing it at all." So the radios over here would play it, and depending on the station, you can still hear it to this day. but they play the full thing. They don't play no cuts or anything like that. Then they're not roundabouting it where they bring it down to 3.5 minutes. Are you kidding me? Oh, that irritates me so much. But yeah, no, that's a great album, and it certainly has a fan base because it is just fantastic. And I almost went for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go on for days just talking about Someone Saved My Life Tonight, but there's other great songs on it too, like Tower of Babel. I've played that on my Deep Nuggets radio show before. Jesus, don't save the guys in the Tower of Babel. Oh, no, no. Oh, it is so good. Now I got to go listen to that. All right, so this next one is a concept album kind of in a similar way that the Queen one was, in the sense that you can pull off particular songs of this, but the whole idea of this album was developed as a single concept. This was developed as this band sort of being alter egos to who they were. The whole idea of this record came about because one of the members of the band was having breakfast with someone else, and that other person said salt and pepper, but they misheard that as Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah.
And so obviously that person is Paul McCartney, and he was thus the idea of Sergeant Pepper and the Lonely Hearts Club Band was born. So this was the Beatles saying, well, this is us not being the Beatles. This is us being a totally different band and making totally different songs. And and it worked because this album is entirely its own aesthetic. And that's part of the reason why it stands out in their catalog. Of course, they were doing that left, right, and center, but there's something about this one, with the fancy clothes and all that, right? With all that. And obviously it has the thing where some of the songs, flow together, right? Like the reprise of Sergeant Pepper going into A Day in the Life to close out the album. And just the whole concept is the fact that you can pull out songs like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and Getting Better and Fixing a Hole or whatever. But when you listen to it as a whole, it was developed as an entire concept. This was before prog rock or anything like that. This was them just making whatever they wanted to make at the time, and to massive success because this is one of the greatest albums of all time. It's unequivocal.
Yeah.
Not even just if I was just doing like a straight up non-concept list, this would still be up there for me. Obviously Abbey Road and all that too, but the overall concept of this album, of them just being this alter band, this alternative band to the Beatles, it's good enough to bring it on the concept album's idea for me. So
yeah, I mean, you can't deny how influential that was, and yeah, I agree. It's one of the greatest ones that was ever made.
You have this album?
Yeah.
Good.
Of course I do.
Well, there's a couple of Beatles albums that you don't own.
Yeah, because they're crazy expensive. That's why. Haven't the money to throw at. I'm sorry.
That's different over here. I mean, to buy the stuff brand new, it's the same. But to buy the used stuff, it is very common, and it is not overly expensive over here.
Lucky you. Right. El Dorado by EL Electric Light Orchestra, a concept album about the Wizard of Oz. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, the playing in this is just incredible. The storytelling in this is absolutely hypnotizing. And it's another one of those just absolute experiences that you immerse yourself in. You sit down and you listen to the whole thing the whole way through. And it's just fabulous. So underrated. I know they took off with Mr. Blue Sky being pulled off the other album. This one is so underrated. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, look, I said I'd pull it into the list today because it just has to get a mention. Absolutely has to. It's so good.
That has Can't Get You Out of My Head on it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that song. Oh.
The whole album is brilliant.
I love that song so much, I just can't get it out of my head.
Oh my God, you're so hilarious.
Yeah, funny looking, maybe. Great choice. Jeff's on tour right now. So if you're in a part of the world, if any of you viewers are in a part of the world where Jeff Lynne is coming to, go see him. I saw him about 5 years ago, and it was awesome. He was great.
Nice.
Now to see him at the same venue in the same spot is $1,000 a seat. So I think
Easy.
I'm just gonna have to be happy with seeing him 5 years ago, because.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a legend. And speaking of legends, so is this guy, Frank Zappa.
I had that on my list as well.
Wow, finally the one mutual, right? But what can I say about this?
Up as well and be like,
Woo! Woo! Yeah, just this whole thing is just fantastic about how the law tries to ban freedom in music, and so Joe, the only normal one left alive, goes crazy. So he ends up trying to find his vice in other areas of life, and it never works out. He ends up like dating strippers and falling in love with a vacuum cleaner.
we've all been there.
And we've all been there. Can any of Hawkwind's LPs be considered concept albums?
Yeah,
Maybe Space
absolutely. Sure, Warrior on the Edge of Time. That's a big, massive concept about Michael Moorcock's book. So, yes, absolutely, Zeb. 100%.
Also, hi, Zeb. But yeah, just to, how it goes through all these really dark lows of Joe's life, but it's all super hilarious.
He was just
the end
genius. Like, to be able to pull something so sad and depressing and just make such a laugh out of it, but with fantastic music behind it as well. Like, that's just all kinds of genius right there.
I totally agree. And it helps if you have obviously the vinyl or like any sort of physical copy of it, because there's narrations. If you look at the booklets, there's narrations between each track that you don't hear on the actual, from the Central Scrutinizer. And yeah, I just think this is amazing. And Watermelon and Easter Hay, one of Frank's best moments as a guitarist for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think this album is fantastic. Joe's Garage and Catholic Girls, Crew Slut. I mean, just it's all here. It's great.
Stick It Out is one of my favorites. The way it's all in German and then goes into English. What?
And Vinnie Colaiuta on drums.
Yeah.
Vinnie Colaiuta, I saw him play with Sting.
Colaiuta!
Kind of young, kind of wow. No joke. I was just listening to that before we got on the call, like a few minutes before.
Nice.
Yeah, Hose Garage.
Yeah.
Frank Zappa.
I had to have that on. That's one of my favorite Zappa albums by far. Like, I mean, I listen to that all the time. It's just hilarious. Like,
that's why you have such a good sense of humor,
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, definitely not all the trauma. Anyway, I am going back to modern prog, and I'm pulling out Coheed and Cambria, and I went for No World for Tomorrow, which is part 2 in the Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star series. Claudio Sanchez, the singer of this band, has a comic book series that he writes called The Amory Wars, and it's very kind of science fiction-y. And him and the band did a load of albums to go along with the comic book. So that's the concept behind him, is all about that science fiction, I'm in space, and it's just incredible.
Okay.
I got into them when I was young. I was very young now. And I think it was the first one in the series that I heard first. I heard 10 Speed of God's Blood and Burial, and I was blown away by the guitar playing on it. And his voice, he has a very strange voice. It's really high.
He does.
And I was like, this is crazy. I love it. So I jumped into it. I heard No World for Tomorrow, and I decided this and In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth are my favorites. I love the Afterman, Ascension, and Descension as well, don't get me wrong, but just those two, I don't know what it is about them, the stories in them, the lyrics and everything are just fantastic. And I have one of the comic books there as well that I managed to pick up one day, luckily. And I love when they pull art in so much so that there's like this huge experience for you to go out and experience yourself, like, and I just think they did some job on it. Just fantastic, out of this world. Can't recommend highly enough Coheed and Cambria.
Right on. I should check that out then, because I got like I had heard of them through Rock Band when I was just a kid, and they had a song on that. I don't remember what song it was, but it was on Rock Band way back in the day. And in recent years, I bought this double essential Coheed and Cambria CD, and I have to keep trying, I guess. maybe
I jump into the albums themselves instead, because, like I said, it's a huge concept across the whole lot of them, and you have to kind of sit down and experience the whole story of it.
Okay. I'm down for that. All right, cool. So speaking of the whole story of it, this is one that I don't even think the band know what this full story is. But this came out in 1974. It is a double album. Coheed, to me, is a poor man's version of Rush.
You're entitled to your opinions, Abe. That's fine. I just disagree.
But we both love Rush, so it's okay.
Yeah, I love Rush too, yeah. I love Coheed as well, though. I think that they are complete. Like, fair enough, he has a high voice like Geddy Lee. Grant, yeah. But their whole venture into music is completely different to Rush.
I haven't heard the drumming in Coheed and Cambria that I've heard in Rush, but maybe I just haven't heard the right stuff.
But I mean, we're not going to compare the musicianship or anything. We're talking about the concept here, and they absolutely blew that out of the water.
Exactly. You can't compare apples to oranges, man. Apples are good when you feel like an apple, and oranges are great when you feel like an orange. So that's all, we're together in this, and that's music brings people together. Anyway, this album came out in 1974. This was the last album with their original singer. He would leave. He had a daughter being born at the time, and I guess he just didn't know how much further he'd go within a band circumstance, a band thing, and so he went solo, sold 10 million albums, so on and so forth. But this is the crazy album that he left this band on. I could tell, we didn't talk about this, but I can tell that Tara knows what it is just by looking at us right now. It's The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway from Genesis. What a fantastic record. Let me get this stupid sticker off there. There we go. I have multiple copies of this on CD and LP and all that. Might even have it on tape somewhere too. But yeah, this is just, the best I can say is that this is a story of a guy named Rael who's going through the motions and living life in New York City. Not to mention the fact that he gets eaten up by the colony of Slippermen and, just all this crazy stuff. He goes through these chambers of 32 doors, all these cool things. It is kind of a hard storyline to follow along with, but it is so worth the listen. It is an incredible album. It is.
Oh my God. There's moments on that of like pure, oh my God, like, is this as good as music can get? Like, I mean, the Lamia now for me is one of the best songs that I've ever heard in my life.
The scent grows richer. He knows he must be.
I mean, like, the lyrics in that are absolutely incredible, but the way they created the atmosphere around it with the music and everything was just mind-blowing for me to hear for the first time. And I had it on repeat when I was in art college because I don't know what it was, but it just inspired me to create the most off-the-wall art ever.
Yeah, and that's what music is supposed to do. So you just nailed it right on the freaking head right there. And you know what's even more unbelievable is the fact that the music was written completely separate from the lyricist.
Which is another sign of how they were literally one of the best bands that were ever there. Like, that's some really tough going to do something like that and to make something as incredible as that.
Yeah, I agree. And Peter not even hearing the music, just off writing the storyline, and then Tony, Mike, Steve, and Phil all making the music in behind him, and it just unbelievable. Oh, Richard Fusey's in the house.
Well, Richard, what's the crack?
What's the crack? Yeah, so Genesis, Lamb Lays Down on Broadway. As difficult as the storyline might be to follow along, there is books dedicated to helping you follow along with it.
It's worth it as well. I mean, as difficult as it is, it's so worth it to kind of seek out something to help you along with the story, because once you do, and it kind of clicks with you, the feeling of like euphoria as you're listening to it is just inimitable. Like,
yeah, and just the musicianship on this. I mean, Steve Hackett really shines on disc 2 of this for me. You get him in Anyway, and the Supernatural Anesthetist, and obviously the Lamia, and the way the songs sort of flow into one into the other. Great stuff. Well,
that riff he does at the start of the Chamber of 32 Doors.
Oh my
God! Like, that brings a tear to my eye every time. Jesus, talk about making your instrument sing.
I know, and there's a version of that he does with his band on the Live at Hammersmith 2013 CD. If you haven't heard that, I would definitely recommend you go seek that out, because it is so good. I play that one all the time, that version of that song. Oh, I can't.
Stop, I'll be in tears, bawling, crying.
Zeb says, I read Tony Banks never read the story even once. Oh, yeah, he doesn't like that album.
Yeah,
but
that
Tony
doesn't
Banks...
surprise me at all. Tony is a bit of a snob when it comes to Peter's lyrics, isn't he?
Yeah. I've kind of noticed things like that where they kind of look down on on certain parts of the band. The only guy in Genesis that likes Selling England by the Pound is Steve Hackett.
Yeah, but that's not surprising at all, because I think Steve brought a lot of that kind of Englishness into the music. I know Peter was great for writing the lyrics and acting it all out, but you can hear it when Peter leaves, even on A Trick of the Tail and Wind and Water, and like Steve is still bringing that really English, kind of old English feel into the music. So that doesn't surprise me at all that he's the only one that likes it, because that has Steve Hackett written all over it.
Well, obviously we like it. That's my favorite Genesis album, is Selling England. So, but yeah, your turn. What do you got?
My favorite as well. But speaking of my favorite, I am pulling out my favorite Moody Blues album.
Nice one.
Or Children's Children, about the Apollo space landing. And
On the Threshold of a Dream. Nice choice. Just kidding.
I do love that one as well, though. But this is my favorite one because it's just, the sentiment behind it is just beautiful. You're thinking of this child seeing the way the world has moved on so much, and that's why there's the kind of caveman hand painting on the front of it, and then the back is the human hand painted, to show the way things have moved on. And it's just a really beautiful album. I always say it, this is something you would want to give to your children and ask them to listen to, because it's just something so beautiful. And it's something I'd really love to pass on to my children.
Or
when they exist.
I would like to pass it on to my children's children's children.
Yeah, I would love something like that to be passed down generation to generation, because it is just fabulous.
Certain albums already have.
Yeah.
and that's one of them.
That's overlooked big time.
That's one of them. Moody Blues is one of those bands at the time where, like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all those bands of that period are going to be passed down among generations. And, people in 50 years, even from now, are going to be discovering, the Land of Make Believe or anything, tunes like that, right?
I hope so.
Great. Nice choice. But you know what choice I got to go with right now?
What?
I really don't mind if you sit.
I knew you were going to pull that out, you know that.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is one of my favorite albums. It definitely is, and Barrymore Barlow just going ham on this thing.
yeah,
It's brilliant. It's
it is.
absolutely
It's
perfect. And
fantastic.
I gotta show something else.
Yeah, pull out the newspaper there.
I can do one up even above that and pull out the anniversary edition vinyl box set. That
No, pull out
you
the
know,
newspaper. That's better. How it was intended to be interacted with. Give us a look at the newspaper.
you know how much this cost when I got it. But all right. Yeah, I have the newspaper right here. Hold on. Now this one kind of has the upper hand because it has the newspaper, but it's the Steven Wilson remix.
Yeah, okay.
So this just came out for the 50th anniversary of this. They just put this out. Wow.
Oh, look at that comment. Too bad Stephen Wilson messed up. Take us a break. The remix. He did a stellar job on every other tull, though.
Not a chance in hell you can read that from far away. You don't like his remix of this album?
No, someone commented that. I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about on the inside of the newspaper. I wasn't reading the comment.
Well, that Stephen Wilson wrote on his own album that it was terrible. Right, okay.
Oh no! If you read the review of this, they actually give themselves a review on this album.
They do,
It's
yeah,
like,
but it's not about the Stephen Wilson remix.
well, I don't know. They could have added something, right? Too bad, Stephen. You know what, Zeb? I love you, but I don't agree. I love his surround sound mix of the album. I think it is very very cool sounding. Kyle from All Media Reviews is in the house. Haven't heard the Stephen Wilson remix. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah, it's worth checking out, especially if you have a good surround sound system. Quadrophenia and Tommy. All right. That was a little while ago, but okay, cool. Right on. Great picks. Take us a break. If you've been following this channel for any length of time, I have been. I've kind of talked about this one a lot, so I don't have to say too much. But 145-minute song, the whole concept of 8-year-old genius Gerald Bostock, obviously being given an award by Winston Churchill over here. Great. Martin Barr, come on. Stop it, man. Stop it. Stop being so damn good. Barrymore Barlow. Imagine this being your first album with it. I can't. It's too good. I can't.
I had a passion play on my list, but I don't know where it is, so I'm going to move on.
I can hold it up for you if you want.
Yeah.
Let me get the CD. Hold on.
I'm going to wear him after putting it now. God's sake.
Woo!
Hurry up, will ya?
Sorry, I forgot where I'd put the CD. There, we're good.
Yeah, a passion play. Because I knew you were going to pull out Take Us a Break, so I was like, I'll go for a passion play just to balance it out. Another fantastic concept album. Another one that's like one song the whole way through the album. All
With
about
saxophone.
the theatre. Yeah, it's brilliant. And so off the wall to come out with something like that. Yeah, Jethro Tull. Absolutely.
With saxophone.
Yes, with saxophone, Cody, yes.
I was just going to see how many times I could repeat that. I was just going to see how many times I could repeat that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Right, you go on to your next pick.
Okay, are you sure? All
Yes.
right. Well, this one is probably the most modern one on the list, but I am absolutely obsessed with this record. Ever since, I've only heard this within the last couple of years, and I've just been totally enamored with this album, and how much I just love it, and learning about the concept and how the songs are split in groups throughout this album. They're split into scenes. It is almost like they're scenes from a memory.
Good one.
Yeah, it's the album that's on my shirt, and I love this thing. I listen to it very regularly. I'm obsessed with it. And like I said, I've come into this one in the last couple of years, and I just haven't been able to ungrip it. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
absolutely
It does
perfect.
that to you.
It does. It does. It does. And I'm still, the concept of it is really cool. I'm still digging that, and how it's the story of this guy who was reborn after he was killed or something in a past life,
Yeah.
and various things go on throughout it. But The Spirit Carries On was the first song I heard from this, and that came to me in a point in my life where I actually really kind of needed it. And just kind of, how songs kind of have that way. It was actually Matt Brown, who's not a Dream Theater fan, but he's like, he had a radio show going on one night, and he's like, I'm gonna play one Dream Theater song that I think that you might like. This is one of the ones that I do really like, and it was Spirit Carries On. And I was sat listening to that guitar solo, and I'll never forget. I was sitting on, it was in my old house. We hadn't moved here yet, and the guitar solo was on, and Mike Portnoy is doing that thing where he follows what John Petrucci's doing at the end of that solo there. And James comes out, safe in the light that surrounds me, and he hits that big Spirit Carries On, and he holds that note.
It's like an out-of-body experience, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly what it was like. I was so excited. I had figured that I had just heard the greatest song that I've ever heard in my life. I literally ran upstairs where my parents where my mom and Al were. And I ran upstairs, and I was like, I think I've just heard the greatest song. I told them about it. Then I came back down. It's like 11 o'clock at night, right? So then I'm phoning up my dad right after. I'm like, Dad, I just heard this amazing song. Like, I just heard this brilliant piece of music, and it's never left me. It is probably my favorite Dream Theater song, despite the fact that I love all of them. There's no song that I don't like by them, but and this whole album, and Nicholas and Victoria, and how I think it was Nicholas that gets killed at the end of it, at the end of Finally Free. Where you can hear the guy walk into the house and open your eyes, Nicholas.
Yeah.
But just great. I mean, Fatal Tragedy. Dance of Eternity, which a shameless plug. If you go onto my YouTube channel here and scroll back a bit, you're going to see my drum cover for Dance of Eternity. That was a fun one to do. Just check it out. Scenes from Memory, Metropolis Part 2. And one more thing before we move on is Metropolis Part 2. If you listen in succession with Metropolis Part 1 from Images and Words, you can actually hear that there's certain parts of that get sort of reused on tracks like Dance of Eternity and other tracks throughout this album. And Dance of Eternity, someone who's not a Dream Theater fan would hear that and go, oh, all the notes, whatever. No, that is actually a perfect centerpiece for this album, because it is the culmination of the entire Metropolis idea in one 5-minute track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very complicated and technical. I think it intimidates a lot of people.
Oh, maybe that's why I like it so much, because I like...
Yeah, because you're mad.
I'm mad. I'm pretty happy right now, but... All right, what do you got next?
I am taking us to Ireland.
I thought you were already there.
You're such a smart ass. I'm pulling out the Book of Invasions by the Horslips, which is a big concept album about Irish mythology, again, like the tone that I have up behind me here. Absolutely, totally overlooked band in general. But these albums are so strong. Like, I mean, the prog community needs to stop sleeping on the Horslips and give them a chance, because this stuff is fantastic. Totally nostalgic album for me to listen to, because you have to learn about Irish mythology in school anyway when you're a kid. And so it's great to have been brought back to that through these albums. And the music is just on a really, really high level. And it just, that feeling of pride you get when, you know, a band from your own country that really produces something as good as this is just great. Like, I mean, I'd say you're real proud of Rush and all them lads, like, who really made it into the mainstream. And it's an awful pity that the Horslips didn't make it into the mainstream as much as they should have, because the stuff they did is just untouchable.
Are they still together?
No, Jesus, a load of them are dead.
Okay. Okay. Rush. It took them a long time. Like and that's a good choice, by the way, Horslips. I've only heard certain songs that you sent me, but all has been pretty good so far. So do your homework, kids. You mentioned Rush just before we get into my last choice here. It took them a long time to get any sort of international attention. Like they were touring for years and years and years, and finally when they took that break, when Neil did the bike ride, and they came back and they were on tour for Vapor Trails, Neil says to them, to Alex and Geddy, he goes, "You know what, guys? I think we're finally an international band now." Because Rush didn't have singles. I mean, they did, but the only one that ever charted was New World Man. And obviously in Canada, you don't go a day here in Canada, honestly, without hearing Tom Sawyer, Close to the Heart, Close to the Edge, Closer to the Heart, and all that on our radios here on FM.
I think that's fantastic that they do that over there. That's really, really fantastic.
Absolutely. Canada has this thing where each station has to play a specific amount of Canadian content. Like 25% of the show has to be about that. But yeah, so Rush, just years of relentless touring and years of albums and albums and tour and album and tour and album. That's what helped bring them into the mainstream. And those dudes fought tooth and nail to get where they are now. And I'm getting chills talking about this. This is very powerful. Yeah, it wasn't like those dudes weren't just like overnight. They were like, they put in the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they were playing with everyone. And in the 80s, I should say, in the 80s, they were a headlining act. But they, like, even at that time, I would reckon that they probably weren't even getting the radio play that they would be getting now worldwide, not just in Canada.
Yeah.
Canada supports their own, usually.
Yeah, well, Ireland doesn't, and I think that's a big part of why the Horslips didn't get the recognition that they deserved.
No, and you mentioned about Irish bands and stuff. Like Thin Lizzy are probably way bigger over here. I don't know, but they're pretty famous over here. A lot of people love the Lizzy over here.
Yeah, they're big here now, but when they were around, they wouldn't have. No, they were a big deal and everything, but they wouldn't have gotten as much love as they do now. And Rory Gallagher actually said that one day he came back to Ireland to play a gig and hardly anyone turned up to the gig. And he actually said to someone, "I hate coming home to play gigs because there's just no support for your own people here. It's a terrible mindset." Like,
wow. Yeah. That's horrible. Yeah. You should respect your home bands that make it on a bigger level. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of bands that make it on a bigger level, my number one choice, you probably know what it is. It's it's a long album, but it is one of probably the most famous concept albums of all time. As Kyle from All Media Review says, I love so many concept albums that almost feel like they aren't that special. Well, it was a good idea for us to do today, and so I love it because it's kind of like a lost art in the pop world, at least of today. But back then, this was pop. This was popular. Yes, it's prog and all that, but it was pop in the sense that it was popular, and this was all over the radio and still is to this day. Now, this album goes through the story of young Pink, who goes through the trials and tribulations of his life. He loses his dad in the war and becomes emotionally unavailable, gets on drugs and stuff, and just has a really hell of a time. He's just blocked himself in emotionally. And, just to think that Roger Waters was the brainstormer of this idea was incredible. I mean, obviously parts of it are very biographical. I mean, about him losing his dad. He's definitely let that known. Like, hey guys, my dad was in the war. You know, as a Pink Floyd fan, you just kind of know that about Roger. But a lot of the other stuff that he added into the story that weren't directly related to his life. I mean, this whole thing is just incredible.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He had a real talent as a writer to kind of put himself into the mindset of anyone he wanted. And he was able to put himself into the mindset of someone just losing their mind so well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was close with Syd Barrett, right? So that's all you need to know about that. Richard Fusey, who is American, I should say. Americans don't know good music. Thin Lizzy are iconic. Yes, absolutely. But they did break in North America here. Yeah, they're very iconic. It's the Irish that she was saying that don't really support their own home bands, right?
Yeah.
I prefer the final cut for the full moan, but The Wall is interesting, even if I never need to hear it again. Yeah, you know, it's one of those where this album has been played and played and played and played so much that you might not need to hear it again, but it'll always be one of my favorite albums. It's the album that got me into Pink Floyd, the movie, all that stuff. So, yeah, Pink Floyd, The Wall, that's my number one.
I didn't rank my picks, so I'm just putting that out there now, okay?
Oh, that's just the number. No, you can't possibly rank any of these.
No. My last one is one that I talk about all the time. I'm always harping on about Jah Wobble. And I've pulled out his concept album, Take Me to God, where he went and explored world music and stuff and did this album about his journey of self-discovery. And it is just... I'm always saying it. It's like a life-changing experience to listen to this album. It's just, it opens up a completely new world of music. And I will never forget the day I heard this album the whole way through for the first time. Oh my good God. Incredible. It was just one of those experiences where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this exists. Brilliant stuff. Highly recommend Jah Wobble. Yeah, I mean that one as well. I think I heard Scenes from a Memory for the first time when I was about 13, I'd say. And I just could not get over what I just heard. And it's the same with a lot of these albums I picked. It's just, I am a huge freak for theatre, for literature, for art. And I think for a band to be that talented, to take a whole story and the theatrics that go with it and the atmosphere around the story and the feeling and everything, to make it into an album is just unbelievable. Like, insane talent.
Agreed.
And I just, this is another thing about all this music we listen to that's just great. Like, it's not something that you can just kind of, listen to that and whatever, throw away kind of stuff. It's just so immersive, like, and people just
Totally.
I'm gonna stop harping on now because I'm getting too deep. But yeah, Jah Wobble, Take Me to God.
No, I totally agree with you, and and that's how it's supposed to be. And another thing that gets me about some of these concept albums is that when bands can write about things that they've never experienced before.
Yeah, it's such a talent. Like,
this is not a biographical piece.
Mm-hmm.
John Petrucci didn't wake up realizing that he was Victoria in some past life, but he was able to write about it. Peter Gabriel is not a guy named Rael from New York City. The freedom of music, well, you say what you want about that, but Frank never ended up in jail for having sex with a vacuum cleaner. Paul McCartney,
you know that.
Yeah, but that's the point that I'm making, is the fact that these artists can get into a different mindset for the project, and they make it so emotional and so believable. Steven Wilson is a guy that does this a lot.
Ooh, he's very good at it. Yeah.
He's very good at it. I mean, he's written a lot of songs about the government and doctors and prescription drugs and things like that, and how all these things sort of mess you up. And he's never even had prescription drugs, But there he is writing songs like Anesthetize and stuff like tracks from Fear of a Blank Planet and such like that, where he gets into the mindset because he's knowledgeable and he knows the ins and outs of these things.
Yeah.
And so, even if you don't experience some of the tragic things that you sing about, like on this album, I keep referring back to this one, Through Her Eyes, that is a sad song. And James LaBrie captures that whole everything. And John Petrucci wrote it, I believe.
Yeah, he did.
But he captures that whole piece of the story. And it is so like, like you get like that lump in your throat when you listen to it, right? It's just one of those things where these guys didn't even experience that, but they're singing it in such they get right into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't have
I love as well the way they can bring in like that sense of humor as well, like Frank Zappa did with Joe's Garage. That's another talent. I mean, Jah Wobble did as well. There's a song called No Change Is Sexy on this, like, and he's talking about how people just don't want to change and they'd rather just carry on miserable in their everyday lives, like, but he makes it funny so that you're like, oh my god, that's so true. Like, and I think that's another talent in itself, like being able to bring humor into something so dark.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show that these guys are immense storytellers.
Yeah.
They really, truly are.
Yeah.
They really, truly are. I mean, Gabriel is one of the greatest storytellers of all time. There's no question about that. This was very emotional. Thank you for this was very therapeutic. Thanks for doing this with me today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I love getting into the nitty-gritty of this music like that. So thank you for having me on.
And this is what we try to do here every Saturday on Brockways Vinyl Bites. You know what it is, man. You know what it is, you loyal viewers, whether you're watching it live or watching it afterwards. This will be on demand for the rest of time until YouTube is no longer. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, if you haven't yet, by the grace of God, if you haven't done this yet, if you haven't subscribed to Tara at Spin in Prague, what are you doing with your life, man? You got to go subscribe to Spin in Prague. They're one of the best channels happening out there now, and it is such natural dynamic between her and her father on that channel and the way they talk about their favorite albums. Even if you've never heard it, you just feel like you're part of it when you listen to them talk and converse amongst each other. And so you don't even have to agree with what they say because it is so positive and uplifting. I'm going deep here with this. I'm sorry, but I love your channel.
Thanks.
You don't even have to agree with anything they're talking about, but the vibe is so welcoming. I don't know, uplifting that it's just like, oh yeah, that's great. It's great. It's great. And your dad is hilarious. So there's that as well. So what do you got going on the channel now?
We have a video going up today about Jethro Tull and the way that they kind of did their albums in trilogies. So we had a little deep dive into all that stuff today, which is fun. So that'll be up shortly. All
right. Woohoo! You're pulling the twofer today. Keeping busy. I like that. That's an attractive quality. Now, all right. For Brockways Vinyl Bites, I'm going to have a little something coming out probably in the next day or so. I'm going to be doing an unboxing of the unreleased 50th anniversary of Grateful Dead's From the Mars Hotel. I got the cool picture disc, triple CD edition, and the colored vinyl as well. I'm not going to show you here now. I'm going to make you wait until you can see the video. All right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. We're here every Saturday, just kicking ass and taking names. Thank you, Tara, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Rock on.